Welcome to the Questions Asked podcast. Here we create a dedicated space for coaches, business leaders, and clients to explore the power of coaching. We dive into the questions that matter, how coaching influences personal growth, shapes leadership, and transforms the workplace. Join us each episode to uncover insights, share stories, and learn strategies that will empower you to make lasting impact in your professional and personal life. Today, I'm extremely excited to present with you my guest, Parjijn Manguri, who is an experienced Agile coach with a background in international business management. Parjijn has been with this for over 4 years and focuses on supporting teams and organizations through Agile transitions. Parjijn also today is not so very far from reaching her PCC accreditation by the ICF. And as you will hear in our podcast, she's passionate about helping individuals and organizations unlock their full potential through Agile coaching. Is that about right, Parjijn?
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So the topic that you brought today was how coaching can transform leadership, team dynamics, and organizational readiness. What does that mean to you?
Well, for me, it means basically starting with Agile transformations itself, right? So for me, Agile transformations is often seen as a process change. So usually, you're supposed to implement a new framework. You're introducing new ways of working and expect results. But the reality is really that the true transformation doesn't really happen through processes alone, but it happens through people, right? And this is where coaching for me plays a crucial role. The thing is, leaders want to, for example, empower their teams, but they still feel, let's say, the pressure of accountability. Teams want to have autonomy, but they are often stuck in systems that do not fully support it. And also organization, they push for change, but the cultural resistance and the structural blockers slow things down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that means how are we able to bridge this gap? And today with you, Natasha, I would like to explore a little bit on how coaching can really transform not only individuals, but an entire system, right? So I would like to discover with you today why for me, for example, coaching is the missing piece in agile transformations, or how leadership coaching helps also to or helps the leaders to navigate through resistance and let go of control, and also how coaching can empower teams to really take ownership instead of just waiting for direction. And most importantly, how can we create the right conditions for an organization to be ready for change?
All right. So, I mean, I already asked you this before we got started. Like, there's team coaching and organizational coaching, leadership coaching, and individual. And a lot of people look at coaching as a one-on-one type of tool in which people talk about the things that block them, and together you co-create a solution going forward. How does this now translate then to, per se, a team or even an entire organization?
Well, I mean, it depends, right? It depends on where you start, basically. So if you, let's say, start as an agile coach, or you're hired, let's say, as an agile coach to coach a whole team, then of course you start with the team. But when you start coaching the team, you're continuously having the system view also in mind, meaning you're like trying to uncover the layers behind. So it might be that you're starting with a team, but then you're moving towards a one-on-one coaching with individuals inside of the team, right? Or it might be that you are uncovering while, for example, coaching a team that they are somehow hindered or blocked through, let's say, restrictions within the system, so that you're trying to not visualize, but try to identify the systems within the system and try to uncover a little bit when comes leadership coaching in place, or when are you using, let's say, which layer of coaching.
So what you're saying, for a transformational agile coaching project, you want to be playing on several layers, but using the same tools of coaching on an individual basis at times.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But it depends also, right? It depends on when you are using which tool. Of course, in general, on all layers, you are able to use powerful questions, right? Or to use the grow model, or to use coactive coaching, right? I think in all and on all layers, it is important to have, let's say, a good client coach relationship. That definitely. But I would say it depends on which layer you are to accordingly adapt. Also, of course, the questions that you have.
And so, how would you then adapt to a certain layer? Can you give an example of a moment where you had to adapt your style to a certain systemic obstacle or group of people that you had to coach?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it depends also, for example, on not only on the layer of group that you're talking to, but also on who is part of that group, right? Because also depending on what kind of let's say cultural aspects you need to consider. Meaning, if you have a group where you have different kind of cultures inside, then of course you're trying to also understand and put yourself into the position of that person, right? So there might be leaders that prefer, for example, a more directive coaching approach rather than just this, let's say,
Ultimately, ultimately, what I'm hearing is you're also in a role of a consultant in a moment there, where you are working with either leaders or teams, and it feels like sometimes you're making that connection between the different layers, and sometimes you're really honing in.
yeah, yeah,
How does that?
absolutely. I mean, of course, also as an agile coach, you have to understand when you are switching heads, right? Sometimes you are truly there to, for example, guide someone through a conversation or a challenge that they are facing for them to, let's say, uncover what would be the best solution to their situation, right? You're just like guiding them through the conversation. But of course, there might be also a situation where you are switching heads, and of course, then in that moment you're playing the consultant or even sometimes the teacher or the mentor, right?
Yeah, and then you switch the hats. You have the mentoring conversation in which you're more advising at times, sharing your experiences, because that's what your clients probably also want from you when they hire an agile coach. They want your expertise, your experiences. They want to know how they can run into a wall and how to avoid it. I'm guessing it's not only going to be coaching questions.
Of course, it's not going to be only coaching questions. I mean, also there it depends on the situation that you are in. If you have to train the client, and then of course it's not going to be questions only, but trying to, I don't know, it depends on the situation where
Hmm.
you are like giving some insights. Let's assume we're talking about agile way of working or the values of agile. Of course, there it's not going to be that you're asking the client, okay, what do you think agile questions, agile values are? But you're like trying to teach first, maybe what is it about agile in general, and then trying to let's say bridge the gap, right? Meaning what are they understanding behind that, and then trying to figure out, okay, what can be done basically to come closer to what needs to be done.
Yeah, I love how you say bridge the gap, because that makes me think of when a client comes to us for comes to you for some help in their transformation. Oftentimes, they don't really know what they need. They usually only know what they want. Does that resonate a little bit with you?
Oh yes, it's also the case that usually they come with a problem, and then at the end it's a complete different problem.
I can imagine.
Yeah, and that's what I love about coaching, because you're like unveiling let's say what is the actual problem they have, right? So you're trying to figure out, okay, what do you want to talk about, and what else? And then you're like layering and layering, or unveiling like a onion, right? And then all of a sudden you realize that what they had in the beginning in mind is not what they want to talk about.
And eventually is not what they will walk away with.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Wow. And working with leaders is something that professional coaching really connects well with. How does that translate into agile coaching?
Um, can you repeat your question, Natasha, please?
Yeah, sure. So, uh, usually when we talk about professional coaching, a
Mhm.
lot of time we talk about leadership coaching or one-on-one coaching. And um, in you were saying you're working on so many different layers in the organization, sometimes leaders, sometimes entire teams, and sometimes working, I'm guessing, with the change teams and helping with the organizational change initiative. How does agile coaching and leadership coaching connect or differ from each other? What is the strong points that you're bringing in?
Oh, that's a very good question, actually. So, agile coaching, for me, it really is, or let's say the difference between leadership coaching. So let's assume we are in the middle of a transformation, right? Usually the company wants to go through a transformation and they think they are ready. And oftentimes also, let's say agile leaders or leaders in general, they are embracing the change, right? But they are somehow limited by the organization. So there comes a lot of frustration in. So they feel,
Okay.
okay, I am a fan of the transformation itself, but I cannot embrace the change because I cannot truly embrace what I want to do within my team, for example. So somehow what they want to achieve and what the company says is contradicting to each other, right? And for me, then professional coaching comes in when you try to discover together with that person, for example, where their
Okay.
power lies. So it is more about okay, within your system, within your power, what can you do personally to allow this shift in mindset for yourself, rather than considering the whole transformation itself. Right? It's just breaking it down a little bit to also reduce the frustration of the
Wow.
client that
So
you're coaching.
that must be a large portion of what you do, especially when you work in an organizational change initiative, when there's an entire transformation work. And I've got a little bit of a peak question for you. How do you scale that? Because you can't do all that by yourself.
Of course, you cannot do that all by yourself. Of course, there's a team behind, right? You have, in general, in organizations, I hope that is in most of the case, in most of the organizations, the case that you have enough agile coaches that can support, right? So, of course, it is that you have, actually, how you can scale that
Um,
is with Scrum Masters. Scrum Masters for me are, let's say, a very crucial role in an organization, also to, in my opinion, a very, let's say, a role that is not truly appreciated. Scrum Masters are usually seen as facilitators, right? Instead of seen as being, let's say, enablers in an organization, right? So also how I can scale that is by challenging, for example, the Scrum Masters with powerful questions on how they can coach their teams effectively, or even the managers that they're working together with, right? For me, they're very often overlooked as potential change agents, but their role is really crucial for driving agile maturity, for example. And for them, it is not only to enforce agile, but also to, of course, to ask the right questions that help the teams, but also managers to self-reflect and grow. And when coaching, for example, Scrum Masters, I try to help them develop these powerful questions so that they can also, let's say, guide their teams more effectively, and yeah, feel more confident in
it
these kind
sounds
of
it sounds
situations
like
as well.
your role as change agent, project manager in such a situation, it sounds like one of your tasks as an organizational coach is really to empower people to take the flame with them. How does that work if, for example, Scrum Masters,
Exactly.
as you say, they're maybe viewed as simple facilitators, which is completely, of course, wrong. How do you help them then become coaches for their own leadership and step out of that role of I am only a victim of the system in a way and doing what I'm told? Is there any room for play?
Mm, mm. Yeah, of course. I mean, how can you coach Scrum Masters I mean, it depends also on the challenges they are facing, right? Because at the end, you can coach Scrum Masters to address team issues in a different way. So when, for example, a Scrum Master is facing team conflicts or disengagement or collaboration issues, a coach can help the Scrum Masters to shift from problem fixing to really team empowerment, right? So instead of stepping into resolving the conflicts directly, the Scrum Master can help here or guide the team to facilitate self-reflection and ownership within the team, right? And the coach can help the Scrum Master to, for example, identify underlying team dynamics. So encourage the Scrum Masters to look beyond surface level and ask the right questions. So, for example, what kind of patterns do you notice in your team interactions, or what kind of assumptions might be limiting collaboration? So there are, yeah, let's say different ways definitely for a coach to coach the Scrum Master, so this has a ripple effect, let's say, on the organization, right? And can also start with team agreements, like coaching the Scrum Masters on how they can help their team to define team agreements, or how they want to handle disagreements within the team to move forward, right? It depends really on the situation, but in general, it's really to facilitate problem solving
Mm.
rather than just providing answers, so that also the Scrum Masters can design really a structured conversation where the team can openly discuss challenges or align expectation and establish these kind of working agreements.
Oh, that's very beautiful the way you put it, because it sounds like now you have become the facilitator of the conversation in a way to empower these people to like, hey, time to step up and make it work on your level in a way.
Yeah.
Um, and so I mean, I can imagine that there may be a question from some people that may be listening to this conversation about how do you work with the agency of the teams? What if the team says, I don't really want to be coached, or the leader says, I don't really want to be coached? How do you work with that?
Well, I would say you have to meet the people where they are, right? So resistance usually comes from fear, from uncertainty, or from past experiences. So instead of pushing coaching, you have to demonstrate the value of coaching, and it can be by asking curiosity driven questions, right, and applying like small coaching interventions in everyday conversation. So I would not roll it out as, okay, I'm going to coach you now, but if I feel that there is a resistance, then I would try to have like small coaching interventions without officially being coaching interventions, right? And I think that
Okay.
helps the teams also to see coaching in a way to really unlock their potential, and not as a forced process, because that is for me always very, very important, that things do not feel forced and you meet the people where they are.
Right. So what you're saying is you're not directly setting down a person in a room saying, "Hey, this is a coaching conversation. I'll be asking you powerful questions
Exactly.
and let's roll with it."
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what would that look like practically? You just bump into each other at a coffee machine and
Yeah, basically. I mean, of course, right now I am working remotely, so that there is no bumping into a person. But what I usually do is, for example, if I see in a team setting that somehow there is, as coaches, you have an intuition, right? And sometimes you feel that there is someone in the room who is kind of slowing things down. And if I see and realize that, I usually reach out just for a one-on-one conversation, basically with the false attempt, right? Or with the false, how do you say that? I am not directly saying, okay, hey, I have realized something and I would like to talk about that with you. But I come with
mm,
something up that I need their support or whatsoever, so that the not natural conversation starts. And that's when I then just slowly and steady try to ask some questions to maybe provoke their thoughts, right? And from there
Okay,
I
so
go.
kind of like, yeah, so you're doing it the slow way, like, hey, time to have coffee. We haven't seen each other for a while.
Exactly.
I could use your
Exactly.
help on this, and just kind of poke away if that's.
Yeah.
Um, that brings me to a question: how I mean, how big is that intervention? Is it just a one and off question, or is it really you eventually want them to have in your coaching conversation? Um,
It depends also for me here on how severe the problem is. So, and
okay,
also on the willingness of the person, right? Because there are like people that are, of course, you start with building trust. You're starting with also showing your own vulnerability so that people are feeling confident to open up to you, right?
hmm,
And then from there, I go in terms of, okay, I have that conversation and I try to tap around a little bit and see how willing they are to open up. And if I feel the frustration is, for example, very big, I offer my support. So it's not that I
okay.
say, okay, hey, from now on, I would like to have coaching conversations with you, but hey, let's have another conversation and see how things went, or maybe give a tip. That's also sometimes what I do. So when I feel that they are stuck somewhere, that I start with a tip, right? So I'm switching hats there, and I'll play the mentor in for a second, so that they feel okay. Oh, that's a person that I can share my thoughts with, and somehow there's coming something back until I switch it. Then, so when I have the follow up conversation with them, that I do not play the mentor anymore or the teacher, but really try to understand what is their problem, how can they fix that, what is it what he actually wants, and how can we get there.
So what I'm hearing is in your work as agile coach, your job is quite fluent. Some this has come back a couple of times. Like coaching is not only a one-on-one session; it's also all the stuff that you do to get the project rolled out, all the way to the scrum masters and the teams. It's about small and impactful interventions. So how does that connect with like a huge, highly structured corporate environment? How do you get coaching in there as a mindset shift in a way?
Ooh, yeah, that requires adaptation, honestly, especially like in rigid structures. Coaching can influence mindsets before changing processes, right? So, of course, I would start here with a one-on-one coaching for leaders, for example, using techniques like reframing resistance, trying to shift from, okay, this is how we're always doing it. What if we try to do it like a small experiment? Right? And because even in strict environments, coaching can help individuals to navigate constraints with more ownership and clarity. So, yeah,
Nice. And so even if there is more, is there a large and well, the legacy corporations that we all work with, where there is like, well, yeah, I don't know if agile coaching is even what we need. What are you doing here? Their small steps is what you would advise.
absolutely. And especially what I would advise is, because what I love about coaching is that for me, coaching is a tool. It's a readiness tool, especially during transformations, right? So you have to look at the willingness of the organization. You cannot just come across and say, okay, like we're doing agile now, let's roll it out, because that's what usually
Hmm.
happens. Sometimes there is like an organization, okay, we have to become agile because of the competitors. They're also doing agile. So they bring consultants in, and then basically they create a plan, and that plan needs to be rolled out. But they're not looking at the leadership willingness, the decision making structures, for example, or even the cultural openness to change. So you can ask the leaders here, for example, are they actually ready to empower teams? Do we reward collaboration, for example, over individual success? Are we open to have this kind of iterative learning, or do we expect still rigid plans, right? And if the answer is no to most, you have to focus on preparing the system with coaching before pushing agile. So you use that in advance the coaching itself with the powerful questions. What is it what they want to achieve? Do they allow what they are preaching or what Agile is preaching? Is that actually allowed in the organization? Or do we still want to have people that are making the decisions for others, even though we are communicating, oh, we would like to have empowered teams, right?
Hmm.
And that's where coaching is really helpful. Let's say in the beginning, especially when you have a big corporate organization that usually is not as flexible as it could be.
Yeah. And so when you are interacting on that level of leadership and you're coaching them towards basically to figuring out, is this organization ready for a larger agile transformation towards scaling small teams to larger parts? When do you see the turning point? When do you know, like, hey, it sounds, it feels, this organization may be ready to take this step towards more agile ways of working, world, broadly?
I mean, for me, it is ready if I see that their actions match with what they're saying, right? So if they say yes, we are ready, but and they say okay, let's create the plan and let's now create these beautiful autonomous teams that are supposed to like be self-empowered and like autonomous and all these kind of things, but their behavior is contradicting, then I know, okay, they are not ready yet. Or there is a lot of more coaching needed. So if in general the company says, or the managers, the leaders say, yes, we are ready, and somehow the actions, even though if they're not fully matching, yeah, but they say yes, we want it, and yes, I see progress towards where we want to go. Of course, this is where you can say, yeah, they might be ready now, but coaching needs to be still used a lot along the way so that they do not fall back into what they're used to, because that is what happens often, right? So you roll out a big transformation plan. You want the teams to be as self-sufficient as possible, and then something happens, and all of a sudden you roll back into control, right? And that's where
Yeah,
you, yeah, where you stay in. You're not as a coach. You shouldn't switch or lose your focus regarding that. Definitely.
and so how imagine that one of our listeners is working in an organization that's moving towards agile ways of working or flatter structures, and they are fully on board, but the organization, what we see a lot, the rest of the organization does not seem to follow suit. How should they deal with this type of frustration, and how can they get, like, someone like you be part of their support team?
Well, I would say focus on what's in your control, right? Because that is what increases the frustration the most. That people are stuck in what they cannot control, right? And it's super
Yeah.
easy. It can be a small exercise, a small painting, two circles. What is in your control and what is not? And instead of, for example, fighting the system here as a whole, they have to find small impactful areas where they can create a change, and then try to build alliances step by step and coach within their influence, right? So they really need to use systemic thinking here to recognize where they can shift behaviors, even if they cannot change, for example, the whole policy in the organization immediately, right? Because over time, these small wins lead to bigger transformations.
So now I'm hearing that one thing that actually anybody, coaches or not, can do is already use some of the coaching tools, such as what you're describing, create a circle with what I can influence and the circle that I cannot take care of that. We can already start using coaching as a tool, even if we're not coaches.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Everyone can does that. I mean, everyone is able to ask powerful questions, right? Encourage critical thinking or self reflection, and it's super easy. like you say, everyone can do that. Is this really what we should do? You can ask, yeah, like I said, right? Is it something that we really should do, or is it the way that we want to do it? What actual options do we have considered, right? This is not something that a coach necessarily needs to ask. This can also be an individual in a team that faces an issue. Like, hey, what kind of options have we considered so far? So yeah, or even, hey, what kind of support do we need to succeed here? How can we
Mm.
challenge ourselves to grow?
Wow. And do we necessarily need to have an agile transformation, or would you say this applies to other teams and other organizations as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we do not, if I understood correctly, you mean if we do not need necessarily, or if we need powerful questions necessarily for an agile transformation?
No, my question was coaching could be used in different organizations, in any type of organization. It sounds like everybody would want to have a Parjin in their organization, at least one, to grow as a team, or as a leader, or as an entire organization. Um,
Absolutely. I have a perfect example for that. In a transformation that was ongoing, we had a lot of new teams that were built up, basically DevOps teams, and there were some teams that did not have, let's say, all the profiles that usually a DevOps team has. So it was more an enabling team or a platform team. And there, the argument starts already. Hey, in these kind of teams, since it is not a DevOps team, you do not need a Scrum Master. Why not? Right? This is the same question on just with a different role. Why would you not need someone that is overseeing, for example, the way a team works? Why is there not someone that can help encourage the team to think differently, work differently, or help them to speak up regarding their impediments? So it does not matter if you're in an agile transformation right now, or if you're in a not in one, so it doesn't matter for me. It doesn't matter in what kind of organization you are. Coaches are required everywhere.
wow. Um, with that wonderful statement, coaches are required everywhere. Is there anything else that you would like to share today with people listening on? And I'm guessing most people will be listening are interested in agile coaching or coaching in the organization as a whole. We've mostly focused on leadership and how to help leaders either coach up, coach down, and be part of the entire transformation. Um, what is something that you'd like to share with people that are listening to this now and maybe asking, like, maybe I should get myself an agile coach, or maybe I should start coaching, right? It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, definitely. So for me, it is for me, coaching is super powerful because it doesn't exist in isolation, right? So if we don't address the systemic forces that shape behavior, we are only scratching the surface. My hope really is that after today, the audience sees that agile is not just a process change, but as is more about a people and a system change, right? So one that requires patience, one that requires adaptability, and also shifting not just individuals but the structures around them. And coaching itself needs to be adapted to different cultures and mindset. And that's why, for me, coaching is powerful. It's really powerful.
Mm. You're bringing in different cultures and mindset, and we haven't really touched upon that. I know that for you, that's an important part of who you are in the work that you're doing. Would you like to share a little bit about that? How that works, especially maybe in this world in which we are not in the office.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, cultural dynamics, they are also impacting agile transformations, right? In some teams, for example, questioning leadership is seen as constructive, right? In others, it
Mm.
is seen as disruptive. So coaching also here needs to be adapted to introduce, let's say, safe discussion formats that fit different cultural mindsets. And transformations in general, like, they often fail because the organizational focus is on the processes rather than on the mindset, right? But An additional challenge arises when teams come from different cultural backgrounds with different expectations of leadership and or different kind of communication styles or decision making, right? And also beyond culture, we need to look at a structural constraints here as well, right? So what about the organizational rules or reporting lines, the KPIs that keep people from basically embracing agile? So for example, in a transformation that or in one of the transformations, the leadership wanted the team to be self-organized, right? But at the same time, teams still had to get approval for every major decision that has been made. So here the system is again like contradicting the behavior they are trying to promote. And the coaching focus here was not, or it was not just how do we help the team to take ownership, but became more to what needs to change at the system level again to enable autonomy, and what kind of policies or approval chains or reporting structures are blocking the agility here, right? And
Yeah.
the different cultures or the different cultures approach leadership, communication, and feedback in different ways, right? So that's also something that is stated in the coactive coaching, where there's also the strong emphasis is again on meeting people where they are, as I said before, right? So you have to adapt your coaching style according to where that person is or where that person is coming from. And especially when you're working with, let's say, globally distributed teams, you need to adjust the coaching. Some teams, they are thriving with direct confrontation, while other teams, for example, they need more a reflective, indirect method to feel more safe and engaged in an open discussion.
Wow. That brings a question to mind for you, Parjin. How do you hold that system? It seems that the work you do, agile or not, is so large, with such a large, so many different ingredients and points touching each other. How do you hold it? Do you take like tons of notes in your notebooks, or how do you remember and take into account the entire system that you're coaching over time?
I mean, also there is, I think a nice exercise that a coach can do is also again drawing. It sounds so, it sounds so simple, but that's really what someone can do, right? So you might start depending on where you start. If you start somewhere, and I had this exercise also recently in one of the courses that I did with the Agile company, where you just write, or you're having your client, you're writing it down, you put a circle on it, right? And then you keep doing the circles to map the entire system and to understand the system as well. And that's where you can make the notes. And after a while, you will see the big picture and you know how you have to adapt again your coaching according to in which layer or in which kind of system you are. And then, of course, again, you need to adapt depending on with what kind of cultural background you're also talking about. So
Wow.
again, also here the cultures, they play a big role.
Nice. And that reminds me of The Culture Map by Erin Meyer, a book that I would highly recommend that really describes how some of the stereotypical things we think about cultures may actually be accepted, true or not. And those are definitely a book that I would recommend in this case. And so, with that entire system in your hands, how long would you say? How long can we say that? Okay, so from the start point when we start working with you as an agile coach to we feel that we've done enough transformation work. How long does that take?
For me, there is no end date. For me, there is truly no end date with the transformation. Of course, you can say we have a roadmap where mostly it might be that you're lucky as a coach and you have been in or consulted in the very beginning when you created the plan, but it might be that you came into a later stage and there's already a roadmap in place, right? So there might be some steps that need to be taken, be it the teams being onboarded, be it I don't know, some trainings that need to be done, etc., etc. But for me, a true transformation is almost endless because there is going to be continuously something that needs to change, right? I cannot, I honestly, I cannot put an end date on a transformation.
Nice. And the moment we've stopped transforming, it will be the end of us. Is that
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. With that point, Parjin, thank you so much. We're concluding our conversation today. I do want to thank you so much for all the wonderful insights you've shared today with us. And is there any way where we can reach out to you if we want to know more about agile coaching itself or the specific perspective that you're bringing in?
Yeah, definitely. You can reach out directly on LinkedIn under my name, Parjijn Manguri. You will find me, and then you can leave me a message there. Definitely. Thank you so much for having
Very
me
nice.
today, Natasha.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been a blast. I've learned so much from you. I mean, we both work in different spaces using the same tools. The power of coaching, it's welcome everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Nice. Thank you so much, Pardon. See you next time.
See you. Thank you very much.